All right. So how are we doing? Pretty good? All right. I am glad to see you. And thank you for your patience on the first day of class when we had a little delay due to some technical issues. And thank you again. I know we're starting at 6:40 instead of 6:35. I just wanted to let you know that I respect your time. That only happened because there was someone here before who needed some technical assistance, and I tried to be respectful and patient, and eventually everything worked out. I will try to get here a few minutes early, like 10 minutes early to set up from now on. I think that'll be more than enough. I'm getting used to using Zoom and Blackboard for the first time. As this becomes more of a routine, I will get better and better at it, and we should be starting on time from now on. All right, just so you know, all of these classes will be recorded by Zoom and made available on Blackboard as soon as possible at the end of class. So, two things that I wanted to really get across that I want to change, and I think it will be better for you, is that the microphone is right here. So when remote people or remote students were reporting on the quality of the recording, they said two things. They said, one, whenever I walked away from the mic, they couldn't hear me as well. And two, they said that I did not share the screen in the recording. Do you see what I'm saying? I think the screen is being shared there, but I didn't figure out how to share it on the recording. So as far as I know, instead of seeing me right in front of the camera, generally every class will have a document or two that we'll be going through together, and that is what will show up on the recording. My voice will be there, but you'll be seeing the document. I hope that works for everyone. All right? Okay. So those are two changes. I'm going to try my best. Guys, I really apologize. I'm so animated and excited and nerdy that I like walking around. There was an ancient philosopher called Aristotle who started his own kind of school in a building called the Lyceum in Athens. He was an Athenian, he was Macedonian, and he taught Alexander the Great for a while. But when he started his own school, he also started his own style of teaching, and he would pace around like I do. And the Greek word for that kind of pacing around was peripatetic. So his kind of philosophy was known as the peripatetic philosophy. It was the philosophy of someone who, lectures and guides discussion while moving around a lot. Now, I'm not going to be showing up on the recording, but still, even though I don't need to be right in front of the camera, I'm going to try and be around this general area so that at least my voice is very clear. All right? All right. So, a couple of things. Did you get a Blackboard announcement yesterday? Was it pretty long? 7 points? About 7 points each? Throughout the whole email? Yeah. Right? Yeah, okay. Did it clarify things?
Was it about the updated syllabus?
I sent another one, yeah. I sent another email, right? Saying that the syllabus has been updated. I made a few changes to make it better. So everyone got both of those two emails. Excellent. All right. All right. So I think that the longer Blackboard email was pretty clear. It kind of introduced everything and set expectations. So the first thing I want to do is go ahead and introduce myself formally. I didn't do a proper introduction last time. We have a lot to do today because I want to get through the entire syllabus. There's some stuff there that's important for you to know about how you're going to be assessed. and how you can know what we're going to be doing each week and all that. But there's also some really important health and even legal stuff there that we need to cover, okay? So it's very important that we get through the syllabus, but because there's other stuff I want us to do as well, I will try my best to go fast, but without, without jumping over anything or missing any detail. As you know, we're going to go through the syllabus in a minute, but I just want you to know that there are 2 different readings you're expected to do every single week. Is that your understanding? Does everyone have that understanding? Okay. One of those readings is from a textbook. Would you please indicate to me right now by raising your hand if you have that textbook? No one has the textbook. It's indicated, the textbook itself is indicated on the syllabus, and we're going to see it right now. The idea, guys, is I'm going to give you short excerpts from some of the major philosophical works. You're not going to read too many of them entire. Some of them are just a few pages long. But the idea is for you to see philosophy as it's happening. And a lot of that happens in writing. Some of it happens like this in teaching, but a lot of it happens in writing, where it's preserved and stored for future generations. So some of the best philosophy is written philosophy, and each week I'm going to expose you to a little bit of it, probably no more than 10 pages. Please get the book as soon as possible, Amazon, bookstore, whatever. They should be available, because I made arrangements before during the summer, and the bookstore contacted me and confirmed that that's the book that I will be using here, okay? So each week I will be expecting you to go through those, because I will be referring to those during the week. We meet twice a week, and we have 2 documents to get through each week. One from that textbook, and the other will be something I've prepared myself. It will be something available on Blackboard, and it will be something that will help. You see, the reading that I give you from the textbook will be very specific. It will be one sample of a specific treatment of a specific issue by a specific philosopher. And that's really good. You need to see that kind of philosophy. You need to see concrete, real life philosophy happening. But what my supplementary stuff is going to do, which is only going to be 3 or 4 pages long, what it's going to do is it's going to take that and kind of put it in a broader context and make you think, okay, this is a sample of a much larger group or cluster of issues and things like that. So that's what we're going to be doing each week, all right? All right, so before we go through the syllabus though, I want to introduce myself formally. My name is John Odito, as I told you last class. I'm in the 6th year of my graduate program in the philosophy department here at UM. I have a long history in universities and getting degrees. I went to Johns Hopkins University for undergrad. I got a neuroscience degree and I got a philosophy degree. And I graduated, and then I went to law school at Harvard Law School. And then I got my master's degree from San Francisco State University in philosophy. And finally, now I'm here at UM. Now, I'm sharing that with you, especially the law school stuff, because if any of you are thinking about going to law school, I really want to open up to you and let you know that when we have office hours on Mondays before we start class for an hour, I will be here to listen to anything you want to ask me about or talk about. Of course, we can talk about things relevant to the course, but whatever else you want to know, what it's like to apply to law school, what each year of law school is like, because it's 3 years long, what you do with your summers, what opportunities are available after law school, and what you can do with a law degree, and anything you want to know. What are some good sources, some good books to tell you about the entire law school experience? All of that, I would be eager to help you out with and point you in the right direction. And in fact, I taught one of these classes 2 years ago, And I'm proud to say that one of my students asked me for a letter of recommendation at the end. And guess which school he went to? Harvard Law School, yeah. So I was very proud when he wrote me the email during the summer telling me he got in. So, I'm just here for you, and rely on me, okay? All right, so that's the introduction. Now you know who I am. I showed my face last time. You can either use memory or imagination. It's up to you. This is the syllabus. Is it visible up there? Okay, good. So this is Phi 101K, that's its formal code. That's the code for Introduction to Philosophy. I am the instructor, John Odito. My email is that right there, jio9@miami.edu. Okay, very important, pay attention to this. My office hours will be Monday, 5 p.m. to 6 p.m., right outside the regular classroom. Let's pray for good weather so we can hang out and just informally talk. If weather is bad, we'll figure it out. It's not a big deal. We'll improvise as we go along. Class is Mondays and Wednesdays from 6:35 to 7:50. This entire area is new on campus. It's called Lakeside Village, and there are different buildings inside Lakeside Village. One of those buildings is the building you're in now. It's called the Pavilion. It's Lakeside Pavilion. I know that probably when you were looking on your schedules in CaneLink, it said that it was room 1000, right? Is that what you saw? Yeah. I apologize for that. It was probably just an error. They confused it with the other building, the auditorium. So just know from now on, it's 1083, and it's indicated on your syllabus in case you need to know it. All right? Okay, let's get through it. Course description. In this course, students will be introduced to philosophy as an academic and professional discipline. Let me just pause right there. So philosophy, as we're going to treat it, is constrained in a couple of ways. One is that we are only talking about what is technically, from a historical point of view, known as Western philosophy. We are not going to do much Eastern philosophy. So the Western philosophy we're going to do is the one that is most focused on in the United States and Europe, and to a certain extent Latin America. So I just want to tell you that ahead of time. I'm not giving you the full story. This is not a comprehensive class. This is Western philosophy that we're doing. And we are missing out on some absolutely stellar, excuse me, we are missing out on some absolutely superb philosophy. Have any of you heard of Hindu philosophy or Hinduism? Hinduism is considered technically a religion, but it has such a rich history of philosophical speculation and things like that. And there are many, many branches and different sects and periods in Hinduism that are rich in almost all the same kinds of ideas that we can find in the West, whether it's materialism or idealism, atheism, you can find it all. Ancient India was a very culturally rich area, just as ancient Greece was. Ancient Greece is where we have the origins of Western philosophy, but India is a rival not to be dismissed. And from Hinduism, as a religion, we get something else that is generally considered a philosophy, because it doesn't really have any kind of dogmatic belief in God, but it's a derivative of Hinduism. Do you know what I'm talking about? Hey, help me out. Buddhism? It's Buddhism. Yeah. So Buddhism is very philosophical. Very, very philosophical, both in its metaphysics and in its ethics. It is a result of deep, deep meditation about the nature of human beings, the nature of existence, and the best way to liberate ourselves from suffering so that we might enter a state of non-suffering called what? Anybody know? Right. Let's hope Kurt Cobain made it to Nirvana. All right. So that was the first constraint. There are other ones, Confucianism in China, also Taoism in China, very influential. And it influenced me in particular, Taoism. And in fact, the fusion of Buddhism and Taoism. When Buddhism migrated out of India, there were missionaries, just like Christians had missionaries during colonialism going all over the place. During certain periods in the history of Buddhism, you had really, really religious kings who sent out missionaries all over the Eastern world. And when Buddhism hit mainland China and it got influenced by Taoism, you get a very deep type of Buddhism called Zen Buddhism. I mean, it's so deep, you should probably think of someone like Yoda or something, you know, at that level of just Zen, being completely at peace and in control and unperturbed by worldly affairs and worldly cares. So guys, I'm just telling you that because I want to encourage your curiosity. Find out about this stuff on your own. It's wonderful stuff, but we have constraints. We only have 14 weeks together, 2 classes each week for an hour and 15 minutes. I'd rather do less better than try to cram it all in, and it's sloppy, okay? So that was the first constraint, East versus West. We're only focusing on West. And the second constraint is we are looking at academic and professional philosophy. What does that mean? We're looking at the type of philosophy that is practiced in universities and that typically results in research publications in peer-reviewed journals that assess the quality of the publications and decide who is worthy of being published. Very competitive, very prestige-oriented. That's what we're talking about when we talk about academic and professional philosophy. I just bring that up because not all philosophy is academic or professional. Not everyone who does philosophy does it to earn a living or enter a body of esteemed colleagues and professionals. There is also amateur philosophy. No? Amateur, the type of philosophy done by dilettantes and amateurs and connoisseurs, people who just love philosophy on their own. This is very important because universities have a history. They weren't always around. But before there were universities, guess who was there? Philosophers. They weren't getting degrees. They weren't joining professional bodies. They were amateurs. Descartes is a good example of that. He did get educated at a Jesuit university, but he didn't enter a professionalized body. He went out on his own. He isolated himself. He meditated alone. And he's much more of someone who goes on a solo mission to discover something, you know, kind of like Magellan or Vasco da Gama, or who discovered America? Christopher Columbus. You see that spirit of, I'm going to figure things out, I'm going to investigate, I'm going to go and discover the new world. You see that spirit? That's the spirit that Descartes had. And it's that earned him the title of the father of modern philosophy. Because he said, look, I'm not going to rely on the authority or conform to the current conventional wisdom of some body. I'm going to figure it out on my own. You see that? He's an amateur. Yes, he learned from others, but when it came time to really dig deep, he went on his own. He was an amateur. A very good writer, he was very eloquent, and that's good, but him, Spinoza, Leibniz, Locke, Berkeley, Hume, these kinds of people in the early modern period, they were not professional philosophers. They were not professors. You see what I'm saying? They were just individual people kind of like, think like Einstein, not Einstein, Edison or Tesla, people just inventing things on their own. Yeah, that's kind of what was going on. People discovering things, discovering philosophical truths on their own. So I just want to remind you that not everyone who is a philosopher has a degree. I apologize. Okay. Students will develop the skills to construct and analyze arguments about metaphysics, ethics, and epistemology. Okay, let's drop a footnote there. First of all, this word argument, we got to clarify something. In casual colloquial speech, an argument might be taken as something like, oh yeah, I had an argument with her about, whether Michael Jordan or LeBron James is the better, basketball player. And our argument got heated. I said some things, she said some things, and we had a heated debate, and we started shouting at each other, and yeah, it was a bad argument. Okay, you see that use of argument? That means something like fighting and screaming and maybe even physical, a physical altercation. Okay, that's one meaning of argument, but that's not what we mean in philosophy. The only thing that we preserve from that situation, that we keep in the philosophical meaning of what it is to be an argument, is that in philosophy, just like in that sort of heated debate or that argument or fight, in philosophical argument, you are trying to persuade the other person. That's true. In both cases, you're trying to persuade another person. The difference is you are trying to persuade the other person in philosophy in a methodical and very clinical and orderly fashion. And so philosophers have developed this thing, this technical skill called an argument, in which you organize your thoughts into different statements, and you have a statement that you call your conclusion that you support using earlier statements. And these statements have a logical structure relating them. And so what's happening is that as you clarify your thoughts and you formulate your propositions well and you make them clear, that helps you understand more precisely what you're trying to say, so that when you start trying to persuade someone else, you both have a common reference and there's no confusion. And yeah, you might still argue, you might still disagree, but you're no longer disagreeing about, through emotion and heated passion or something like that. Now you're disagreeing about things like, okay, what do you mean by this word? I see you use that word. Do we mean the same thing by those words? This phrase, this clause. You see, now it gets technical, and you're zeroing in on the same meaning. We are going to spend a good amount of time talking just about arguments and their role in philosophy. I'm not going to have a whole class about it, but I'm going to at least introduce you to what arguments are like and why they're important. There's an entire branch of philosophy dedicated to studying arguments. It's called what? You have any idea what the branch of philosophy that studies arguments might be called? Logic. Yeah, that word logic, that's what it means. It specializes in examining how to construct arguments that are good, meaning technically they are valid and they're sound. We'll explain what those mean. And then it also really spends a lot of time talking about the different types of arguments and what makes an argument good and what makes an argument bad. That's all you need to know right now, all right? We talked about metaphysics, ethics, and epistemology last class. I just want to hear from one person what your understanding of metaphysics is. In general, in one or two phrases, what is metaphysics? Concerned with what? Raise your hand. Yes. Yes, the study of reality, the study of ultimate reality, the study of concepts like existence and being, things like that. One way to tell the story about the beginning of philosophy is something like this. And I'm going to actually prepare a document that really is a very succinct summary of the history of philosophy for you. You can look on Wikipedia or other sources to get more detail, but the bottom line is this. Historically, among the ancient Greeks were a civilization composed of several city-states. Among these ancient Greeks, there was already something like sages. Do you have an idea of what the word sage means? Yeah, it's a teacher. It's a very, how do you say? We have these sages also in India and China. These sages are very respected elders who have accumulated a lot of very practical wisdom. So Greece, before the classical period, we had a period where we had 7 very famous sages. And they were famous because their wisdom was very practical. They weren't speculating about the nature of existence and being. They were trying to give wise advice on how to live your life, how to be truly wise, and how to identify as you're going through life what really matters and what's important as a practical matter. What things should you give priority to? What things should you be keen about? They had a lot of good advice, kind of like the good advice you get from a big brother or an elder in a church or something like that. So they were called sages. That word sage means very wise. Now, these sages, as I said before, they just give practical advice. And there were 7 of them. But one of them, in particular, his name is Thales. Have you heard this name Thales before? Yeah, Thales was one of the 7 sages, but he did something a bit different. He didn't just make remarks about wise proverbs and wise sayings and good advice. He started speculating about the nature of the universe and the nature of things. And he made a remark that might seem to us kind of crazy, but if you pay attention to it, it's really remarkable because it shows you the beginning of philosophy in the West. What he said was that everything is made out of water. He said everything in the world, everything in the universe is made out of water. So, if you just hear that, you're probably going to dismiss him like, yeah, that's what you get when you don't take chemistry, right? That's what you get when you don't study modern physics. So you might dismiss him too easily. But I urge you to take a second look. That's a very intelligent remark. It might not be true, but it's still valuable and intelligent. Why? Because he's proposing something that begins what is arguably the key distinction that gets philosophy started, which is the distinction between reality and what? So if he says everything is made out of water, what is he suggesting? He's saying things look one way, but they're actually another way, right? So there's a distinction. There's a distinction between how things appear and how they really are. Do you see that? Do you see the distinction, appearance versus reality? He might be wrong, but that doesn't mean he's not intelligent. This guy was predicting eclipses back about 600 years before Christ. He wasn't using telescopes, so he was smart and mathematically trained. But he made a guess. He made a speculation. He suggested something that made sense to him as a possibility. He said, look, everything around us seems all diverse. There's all different forms, all different appearances. But what if, as a hypothesis, all of these are just different forms of the same thing? You see that? Now, let's go back to water. So he's saying everything in the world might be, despite all the variety, it might just be different forms of the same thing. But he could have said that it's different forms of air or gold or carbon dioxide or wood? Why do you think he chose water? What is it about water in its natural geological states? What is it about water that might suggest, hey, the world might just be a whole bunch of different forms of the same thing? There's something about water, especially on this planet, that might suggest everything might be made of water. What is it? What is it about water? What do you think? Why water and not gold or wood or iron? Yep.
Is it because we drink it?
That's part of it.
When they say, like, you are what you eat.
Yeah. In fact, Aristotle, one of the later philosophers in Athens, he actually thinks that might be part of it because we take it in. But I want you to think back to physics and chemistry. And I want you to think about changes. Yeah.
Because water changes and like all states matter.
Yes, that's it. Matter can have different states and still be itself. It hasn't changed what it is. It's just in different states. That's it. What are the three different states that water can be in? Liquid, solid, and gas. Radically different appearances, right? But somehow we have this belief that you'll get distracted if you only pay attention to the appearances. If you're keen, you'll recognize it's the same thing. That, I think he took his observation of things like snow melting and water evaporating and precipitation and snowing and rain, water cycles. He probably took that and used an analogy and said, hey, wait a minute. If water is flexible enough to go through all these different states, then what if it's also the same thing going on, but on a larger scale for everything else? You see that? Make sense? Maybe he was wrong. Maybe he was naive. Maybe he was premature. He came before we had periodic tables and all that. But I do think he's very, very intelligent. And the distinction between appearance and reality that he introduces has been a theme that runs all the way through ancient, through medieval, all the way to modern and contemporary philosophy. All right, ethics. Can anyone tell me what ethics is? Yeah, exactly. It is how we figure out the values of things. How do we figure out whether a person is a good person or a bad person? How do we figure out whether or not an action is a right action or a wrong action? You see that we're valuing things, so we need some system to help us figure out or determine what makes an action right or wrong. And ethics is one branch of axiology. Axiology is the broad discipline concerned with the nature of values, the sources of values, and the justifications for values. All right? And then epistemology, can anyone help us out there? Anyone remember what epistemology is? Yes, it's a theory of what knowledge is, right? So Aristotle's teacher, Plato, he had this theory that he worked out in some of his dialogues where he starred his teacher, known as Socrates. He had him propose the idea that maybe knowledge is something like having a belief that happens to be true and is also justified. Because having a belief is not enough for knowledge, and just having a true belief isn't enough because you could accidentally have a belief that's true, and that doesn't feel quite like knowledge. But if you have a belief that's true and is also justifiable or justified, and you have some good reason why you believe it, sounds like a better candidate for actual knowledge. All right, students will develop real-life skills. They will learn how to write a persuasive, argumentative paper. So this word paper is a technical term in philosophy. It just means a very well-organized essay. In this class, you will have 4 essays to write, each between 3 and 4 pages long, but that's coming later on in the syllabus. They will learn how to write a persuasive, argumentative paper, develop critical thinking and analytic skills. What are critical thinking skills in your opinion? What does it mean to think about something critically? It's the opposite of what? So if you're indoctrinated, what are you not doing?
Open-minded.
Yeah, you're not being open-minded. If you're indoctrinated, you've been socialized in a certain system or in a certain society to believe certain things, then the one thing you're not doing, you're not being open to other possibilities, and you're not questioning the things you've been taught. You're not questioning your authorities. But to think critically is to say, I've been told all my life that men are better than women. But is it true? Let me question it for once. I've been told all my life that people who are rich are self-made millionaires. They did it themselves. I've been told all my life that America is a meritocracy. If you come here and you work hard, you will get ahead. I've been told all my life that everyone in America lives the American dream. Are all those things true? Well, if you enter a mood of wonder and you start asking yourself if they're true, you've started critical thinking. Critical thinking is not so much about a particular conclusion, it's just about being critical about the things that you've left unexamined and unchallenged. Challenge them, and if they survive a good challenge, then they're probably pretty good. But if they fail very easily, you might want to revise your opinions. All right. As well as learn how to argue in an open-minded and effective style. Open-mindedness is extremely important. Look at us. We're different races, different genders, maybe even different sexual orientations. We come from different socioeconomic backgrounds. We can't make all these assumptions that just because we're UM students that we're monolithic. There's variety. And you have to be open-minded so that you can entertain possibilities that you've never entertained before. Perhaps there are people at UM who aren't like you. They don't have the same experiences, and so they're going to judge things very differently than you. And it's nice to be ahead of time, receptive, and anticipate that, so that when they do say something you don't agree with, your first reaction isn't to, fight or resist. Instead, your first reaction is, oh wow, I never thought of it that way. Could you help me out in understanding why you think what you think, how you came to think what you think, and why you think what you think is valid or justified? That's open-mindedness. And when you back it up with critical thinking, now you've got a dynamic discussion going on. These are skills that you can use everywhere. I just read something the other day about just how well philosophy students do in the tech world, in Silicon Valley, in Wall Street, all over. You might think, oh, it's computer programmers, it's computer scientists. They're the ones who are being hired in upper executive management. No. The people starting Wikipedia, they're not regular, software engineers. They're philosophers, they're historians. And a lot of this critical thinking is there, and the liberal arts and the humanities in general, it offers something that these highly technical fields often don't. If you get a degree in some hyper-specialized subfield, okay, you will be very proficient at that. But as soon as you experience some change, you can adapt. But if you're in the habit of thinking critically, then ahead of time you anticipate other possibilities, you entertain alternatives, and you start exploring them. Do you see that? Does that make sense? Philosophy majors do very well in law school, med school, you name it. They're all over the place. So that's what we mean when we say that these skills can be applied in the real world. All right, finally, this class should provoke students to examine the grounds for many opinions that they have probably been left unexamined till now. Guys, one of the most beautiful things about being human is that we care about a whole lot of stuff. Even we might not realize it. You know, when you come out of the womb, you probably just care about a little milk, you know, or whatever. But as you develop, you have all sorts of cares. You care about, you know, being liked by your friends. You care about playing your favorite sport. As you grow older and older, you start caring about other things. You start caring about your family. You start caring about your children if you're a parent. And as your parents are getting older, you start caring about them as they need your help. This word care begins to get heavier and heavier. All of a sudden, you're going through life and you've got all these cares, and it's like a burden. And now we can understand why religions were born, right? To help us bear this burden. Being human is beautiful, but it's also a very serious affair. There was one philosopher, his name was Schopenhauer. He said, if we look at our life and we zoom in moment by moment, it's kind of like we're living a comedy. But if we look at the beginning and all the way to the end, it's always a tragedy. It's a very serious affair. Just like Scarface or Godfather or Oedipus Rex. All right, now we can go a bit faster. Learning objectives. This is a bit of repetition, but here we go. Gain a basic appreciation of philosophy as an academic and professional discipline. Learn how to write a persuasive argumentative paper. Develop critical thinking and analytic skills. Oh, this one is good. Learn to appreciate canonical texts and authors in the history of philosophy. We've been talking about metaphysics and ethics and epistemology. No, these things are not abstract. For every philosophy, there's a philosopher. Philosophy is very human. And the reason I'm giving you those readings from the textbook, that'll give you the human side. You'll begin to see some of their sentiments, some of their cares, some of their insecurities, okay? What they care about. Learn how to argue in an open-minded, fair, and effective style. We've already talked about open-mindedness, but let's talk about fair and effective. Being fair is at the heart of philosophy. Because honestly, guys, this thing called truth is actually, from a certain perspective, a matter of justice. It's a matter of being fair. Who's right? Who is right? Is it conservatives or is it liberals? Who's right? You can't just run in and say, obviously the liberals are right. And you can't just run in and say, obviously the conservatives are right. No, it's a bit more delicate than that. It's more nuanced. So as you get more refined and you become more sensitive, you'll start to realize that there's a burden in being a philosopher. You've got to be just to everyone. So you no longer take sides and get all heated and start rioting just because someone did something that you don't like, or you have ideological differences. No. Philosophy also civilizes us. What is being civilized? It's recognizing that you have to cater to and accommodate other people. That's what civilization is. I am civilized. It means I'm polite. It means I'm considerate of others. And I'm considerate of others who disagree with me, who are different from me. Being fair, being just, is a very serious affair. That's what philosophy is all about. You see my point? All right. Learn to think critically about metaphysics, ethics, and epistemology. Guys, here's the good stuff. Grading. 4 short, double-spaced essays, each 3 to 4 pages long. Each essay is on a different philosophical topic. Each essay is worth 25% of your total grade. 25 times 4 is? So do you see how you'll get your total grade? Is it clear? Excellent. Essay 1 will be on the huge, huge topic, the nature and existence of God. Oh boy, how do we even break into that, huh? His nature. How do we know his nature? What is his nature? And once we know his nature, once we figure that out, how do we determine whether that nature exists? Very interesting. I'm going to help you think about this and give you the resources for you to write your own paper, short paper, about that topic. I want to know what you think, but I want to know what you think with the tools and the methods and the refinement that we're trying to cultivate in the class. Get me? Make sense? All right. The mind-body problem, heavyweight there. Both of these qualify as metaphysics. God is not a visible thing. He doesn't appear, or he does, I don't know. Maybe Krishna is God, maybe Buddha is God, maybe Jesus is God, maybe God does appear, maybe. But generally speaking, when you see a burning bush, the burning bush is not God. It's just a sign that God is mysterious and inscrutable and ultimately cannot be understood. You know, philosophy means love of wisdom. And if you consult the Hebrew scriptures, it's very clear. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Not the understanding of the Lord, but the fear. Keep that in mind. The mind-body problem, just like with God not being visible, and therefore being metaphysical since he's not physical, this mind-body problem is also a metaphysics issue, because God is not visible, yet we have the world. So what's the relationship? Is God real, and the world is kind of just like appearances? Okay? So we've got bodies. One interesting thing about being human is that we've got bodies. Now, our body's the only thing that we've got. Is there something else? What? Mind. We typically assume that human beings have minds as well. Interesting. Why do we assume that? Why can't we just say, no, it's all bodies? After all, physics and chemistry have figured everything out, right? So the only things that exist are physical things. No? You feel comfortable with that? The only things that exist are physical things. Do you feel comfortable with that? Because you're religious? Ah, okay. Not because you're religious. Because you're committed to the idea that you have a soul or a spirit? Maybe? No important. We'll explore it. All right. How to determine right or wrong. Very interesting. How do you figure that out? Again, you come out of the womb, this is wrong, that's wrong. Ma, she stole it, told me she's just out of control, she's bad, Mom. She hit me, I hate her, she's bad. You get older, and you start not liking people who are members of certain political parties. Maybe you don't like certain presidents, and you start calling them bad. And you start saying what they do is wrong. Their policies are wrong. Of course they're wrong. They're doing abortions, right? That's wrong, clearly. Now, before you figure out how you would know it's wrong, you're already saying it's wrong. But you know it's wrong, right? Is the epistemology of ethical issues the same as the epistemology of metaphysics? Is the theory of knowledge that tells us what really exists the same type of epistemology that will tell us what's right and wrong? Something for you to think about. And then, my favorite, exploring the meaning of life. So axiology is all about values, and you could say that when you're valuing actions, then you get good and bad, right and wrong. When you're valuing persons, you can still talk about good and bad, beautiful and ugly, right and wrong. But what if you take a step back and you look at your whole life and then you try to assess its value? That's where the problem of the meaning and value of life comes. What's the value of my life? Is it worth living? And how do you figure that out? I felt that that should be how we conclude the course, right? Because that's one of those deep, deep things that we should think about. And then as you finish the course, I want to leave that in your mind, because it's a very deep issue. All right, guys, I hope you're as excited about these topics as I am. Now, the boring stuff. Attendance policy. I'm going to speak really fast because I think you guys, maybe you've already gone over this, but I have to do it. I will take attendance at the end of each class, and you must stay in your assigned seat throughout the rest of the semester due to COVID policies in place for your safety. Participation in discussions in class is expected. This will greatly enhance your preparation for the essays. Okay, this next sentence is very important. No idle or irrelevant use of electronics is allowed in the classroom. Guys, I think you're picking up on something about me, right? My teaching style is not just purely lecture. You noticed that, right? Now, since I want to engage you, I just want some eye contact. Show me some love. That's all I want. But if everybody's on their phone, it kills the mood, right? But you guys have been respectful so far, so I will not ban electronics. Let's just respect each other. Due to COVID-19 policies, there will be no group work and no physical handouts or submission of any physical materials of any kind. Submission of assignments will happen entirely online. Every document or source you need for the class other than the textbook will be made available for access or download strictly online. Is there anything confusing about what I just said? Is it clear? Okay, good. Attendance and assigned seating. There's a link there. So as semesters begin, there's a little, turbulence and confusion. People are adding classes and dropping them, so the seating arrangement might be changed. And I actually confirmed from one of the students today that it did change for him. So all I ask you is please be patient with us and with the university. There's a lot going on right now, and we just need to be patient with each other. You know what I mean? We really do. People are going through a lot, and let's affirm each other's humanity first. And all that technical stuff and the logic and metaphysics can come later, okay? All right, so in order to help everybody out, that website is there. There's an official website you need to be checking daily for the next 1 or 2 weeks. If there are changes, then I will expect you to check it in the morning and then come to your new assigned seat. And then I will always take attendance at the end of class. I'm taking it at the end so that if people come late, I won't forget, you see? Okay, so I'll take it at the end of class, and then I'll just expect you to be in your proper seat. Thankfully, this won't go on for too long, okay? All right. The other thing is that we're going to get to it again, but I just want to mention, you guys realize you have to do a daily symptom checker? All right, I'm just reminding you. Please, one thing I'm not clear about is, do you have to do it on days you don't come to campus? I'm doing it every day because I'm still a student. I'll try and find out for you, but just do it every day until we figure it out. General COVID-related classroom policies. Oh my God. All right, here we go. Face coverings are mandatory at all times, with the exception of when drinking. While in on-campus class sections. Failure to follow this requirement is grounds for disciplinary action, guys, and may lead to removal from the classroom and/or the course. Guys, I'm struggling. Like, I can barely breathe, and I'm very animated, and it's a struggle. But out of respect for you, and respecting each other, I'm just gonna wear it. So please try your best. Students are expressly prohibited from recording any part of this course. This is very important, guys. I mentioned I went to law school. We talk about property. Well, there's a very specific type of property that's like YouTube and all that stuff, right? That's intellectual property. And we have to respect people's property. So I am going to share this with you, but distributing it beyond the people in the class is disrespectful to the people in the class because they've been participating, this is partly their property. Do you see what I'm saying? One of the famous philosophers, John Locke, he said that the way property is created is through mixing your own labor into something. So if you labor on something, if you fix it or modify it using your own energy, then that's what makes it yours. But labor is not all manual, right? If someone has ideas and they're thinking and they're participating and they've been recorded, hey, it's like, Ariana Grande or Taylor Swift or whatever. I mean, they want their property. And if you put it on YouTube, you could get into legal problems. You see that? All right. So please don't distribute it outside here and don't record any part of the course. The other issue is also privacy, right? Apart from the intellectual property aspect, there's the privacy. You can't just share information about where people live or what their social security number is, right? So you also don't necessarily have the right to share what people's opinions are in a meeting like this. Meetings of this course might be recorded by the university. Okay, they are being recorded. Any recordings will be available to students registered for this class as they are intended to supplement the classroom experience. Oh my God, I can barely breathe. Students are expected to follow appropriate university policies and maintain the security of passwords used to access recorded lectures. So I was having so much trouble trying to make this thing available and give the link. I have not given any passwords. Nevertheless, it's distributed only to people in this class on a specific website with a homepage only for you. So lack of a password is not an excuse for distribution. See that? Okay. Okay. Recordings may be reproduced, shared with those not in class. Sorry, recordings may not be reproduced, shared with those not in class, or uploaded to other online environments. If the instructor or University of Miami office plans any other uses for the recordings beyond this class, students identifiable in the recordings will be notified to request consent prior to such use. So what does that mean, guys? Just like you can't do it, neither can I. You see what I'm saying? This is your intellectual property and it's mine. You see it, right? Okay. Oh God. I'm sorry, guys. I really am out of breath. Unless you are approved to take this course under the remote learning option, physical attendance in the classroom is required as scheduled. Guys, I'll be taking attendance every class, okay, at the end. You are expected to participate with your video enabled during your non-class days. Okay, so let's talk about that. Have any of you actually done that? Or maybe I should send an email to those who don't attend and just ask them how they've been participating. I designed it to be like this, and then it's made available asynchronously immediately after class. But they're saying the remote people should be able to participate synchronously in class. So that's something I've got to work on and clarify, okay? If at some point in the semester you cannot physically attend class sections due to illness, injury, or other proved absence, you must contact the instructor for permission to temporarily attend the course online. Unexcused absences from the classroom may affect your grade or lead to a failing the course. Please also include your normal attendance participation language on excused and unexcused absences. That's from me. Okay. If you are approved to take this course under the remote learning option, you must keep up with the virtual class as scheduled. You may not, under any circumstance, physically attend the class on campus. If you cannot keep up with the virtual class due to illness or other reason, you must contact the instructor. Failure to keep up with the virtual class as scheduled may affect your grade or lead to failing the course. Your Blackboard or Canelink assigned seat is your seat for the semester. All right, the seat you select on the first day of class must be from among those identified as meeting the physical distance requirements for COVID-19. This seat will be your assigned seat for the remainder of the semester. This will enable the most effective COVID-19 contact tracing should it be required. Students are required to use the daily symptom checker and be cleared to attend class each day. Students may be asked to show the green good to go notice. You may be required to produce your notice at any time while on campus. Students who fail to comply or produce their good to go notice will be asked to leave the classroom. Professor X, that's me, Professor X, is the copyright owner of the courseware. Individual recordings of the materials on Blackboard and or of the virtual sessions are not allowed, and that such materials cannot be shared outside the physical or virtual classroom environment. There will be no group work and no handouts during this class. All assignments will be submitted electronically. Late policy. Okay, this is important, guys. Please, out of respect, let's try and be punctual, okay? I will give you a schedule. You'll know when things are due, so you can plan ahead, all right? You only have 4 things to submit. You can plan. And in fact, we're not coming back after Thanksgiving. And if you look at the schedule, your very last assignment, I've done you a favor. Guess when it's due? Before. So you'll be straight. Okay? Sounds good? So I haven't yet set up how you're going to submit those assignments. I got to figure out the best way on Blackboard, but give me some time. We haven't reached there yet. Your first assignment is in 3 weeks, okay? Grading scale, the usual grading scale will apply. Okay, you can look over that on your own. This is important. Text. The text for this class is Introduction to Philosophy, Classical and Contemporary Readings by John Perry, Michael Bratman, and John Martin Fisher, 7th edition. I will also be posting lecture notes to accompany each week's lecture. Tentative reading schedule. Tentative means it's just, we're using it for right now, but it might change, okay? All right, guys, week 1, which is the week we're in. It's the introduction, and what I wanted to talk about today was the meaning and value of philosophy. Your first reading from that textbook is by a British philosopher called Bertrand Russell on the value of philosophy. Please read that as soon as possible. Once you get the book, we will find some way to talk about it. Week 2, the cultural vocation, mission, and function of philosophy. I mentioned Aristotle today, and I also mentioned Plato, but they both had another master, another philosopher, known as Socrates. And Socrates was a very charismatic and very inspirational philosopher who is arguably either the most famous philosopher or the most influential one. I mean, it's hard to say who is the greatest philosopher, but he's certainly a candidate. He's certainly a candidate. And look at the language I'm using: the cultural vocation, mission, and function of philosophy. We need to think deeply about what philosophy is and what philosophers are. What I want to suggest to you guys is that, remember how I was telling you about those sages who are helping people live better lives, giving ethical advice on things to avoid and things to be mindful of? Well, they were doing a kind of ethics, It wasn't technical and systematic. It wasn't academic or professional, but they were doing a kind of ethics. Socrates is also doing a kind of ethics. After Thales makes things metaphysical and all that, then about 300 years later, during the classical period of Athenian culture, once again, things get very ethical. Socrates is going around telling people, look, the things that you care about are not the most important things. You care about money. You're so proud that we live in Athens right now because we're so powerful and we're better than our rival, which is Sparta, and we're so good. We beat the Persians in the war. And he's around people who have these big egos and they're complacent and they care about money and comfort, and they're kind of slothful. But they're not slothful in the sense that they don't get out of bed and they move really slow. If you look in the history of Christianity, there are 7 deadly sins. Sloth is one of them. Sloth doesn't mean so much being lazy physically. Sloth means something like not caring about the right things sufficiently, like the salvation of your soul, like being virtuous. The cultural mission, vocation, and function of philosophers. So those sages who are giving out good ethical advice, they're kind of like the Christian saints. They're concerned with saving souls. And we can see this brilliantly in the case of Socrates. That guy was not someone who liked talking. He's going to look like that because they're a dialogue, right? But you really catch his spirit. He's in the mission. He's in the enterprise of saving souls. Because when he looks around, he sees a whole bunch of people living distracted, mediocre lives, instead of every day focusing on what's really important, which is being as virtuous as possible, being as holy as possible. And guess what, guys? Do you think those people liked being criticized? So what do you think happened to Socrates? Well, what happened to Jesus? Okay. That's the coming attraction. The ontological argument for the existence of God. Guys, remember I was telling you that arguments are a very technical thing? So we're going to start examining some of the arguments that have been put forward for God. Some of them are purely logical ones, where people say, okay, if we just understand what God is conceptually enough, then we'll see that that very concept implies existence. So you don't need to look at the world to figure out whether God exists. Just understand what God is, and you're home. Now, there's another 2 classes of arguments that are empirical. They say, okay, that ontological argument is a bit fishy. How can you figure out whether someone exists merely by understanding what they are? I'd rather look at the world. You can look at the world in 2 different ways. You can look at the origin of the world, where the world came from, and you can be like, boy, all this coming from nothing? I don't think so. It must come either from something equal or greater, and we'll call that God. And then the other type of empirical argument is, hey, this world, it has a kind of, what's the word? Design. If you look at the world properly, it looks very well designed. Things fit together too well. The molecules fit together too well. Oxygen is just a bit too comfortable with carbon. Look at our double helix. Look at DNA. Look at the brilliant double helical structure of that. You want to tell me that that's accident, that's evolution? All right. God, optimism, and the problem of evil. If God exists, that's a property God has, right? And people spend a lot of energy trying to prove that property, existence. But there are some other philosophers who focus on other properties of God. Things like him being powerful, him being very wise, and him being very good. So some people say, I can sum it all up for you. Who is God? God is the most perfect being that ever exists. And his perfection implies not only that he's the most real thing, so it definitely exists, but his perfection also implies that he's the best Okay, that exists. And if he's the best, then anything he designs or creates will also be what? Low quality or high? It's going to be high quality. And not just high quality, it's going to be what? If God does something, what level of craftsmanship do you expect? Good, better, or best? Yeah. So if this world is the product of a benevolent and perfect and good and holy and pure and absolutely perfect being, then that implies that his work will also be the best possible. Now that creates a clash, right? Because if you say that this world is perfect, what's the obvious objection? Good and what's the opposite of good? This world is perfect, and yet what is this? Okay, guys, we run out of time. I really enjoyed our time together. I'll figure out some way for us to catch up. I have to take attendance now, so bear with me. Please remind me to take attendance every day. Please, please, pretty please. It's actually available in Blackboard, I think on the main page. Yeah, you see right here. Let's see. Or it's also available on my syllabus, right? Okay. All right, I thought there was a link right on the main page, but it's okay. I'll go to the syllabus. Okay. All right, front row, starting with you. I'm sorry. These the things that go behind my ears, they make my the slippers in my glasses fall, especially when I bend over. I'm sorry, what did you say?
Anesthesia.
Okay.
Vertebra, D-E-R-E-M-E-V-A.
Okay.
5.
5. You said 5?
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, next.
I'm Amy Welty, and I'm C30.
Thank you. Next.
Julia Mariano.
Okay, I think I got that. I'll correct the spelling if I know what you told me first.
And a teacher.
Thank you. Next.
Nick?
N-I-C-K?
Yes.
Yeah. And then
Rubinetti?
2 T's?
Yes.
I'm intuitive, guys. I'm psychic. I. Number
12.
Okay, next.
Sarah Farraher.
S-A-R-A-H. And then?
Farraher, C-A-R-R-A-H-E-R.
And
11.
thank you. Yes.
Overall, so,
Okay.
I like viral.
Oh, viral. Okay, that's nice. Okay.
And then so, E-A-T-E-O.
Thank you. Next. No, I need a number.
10.
Thank you. Oh, okay. I think I remember. Okay. Okay, gotcha. Okay, next. I mean the number? 9. Okay. Next.
Chris, Wong,
And number?
18.
Thank you. Next.
Dante Sorrentino.
Sorry, what did you say?
Dante Sorrentino.
Thank you. Number,
17.
next,
Guillermo,
what's your name?
Guillermo, Guillermo, and FRENERO,
M, N, E,
NRO,
thank you, number,
14,
last,
Jocelyn, Makia. 22.
number.
22.
Guys, I'm sorry if I was awkward in this, but we're gonna be in it together. I'm sorry I kept you late. I'll try to work on that, getting you off on time. Are there any questions? Is everything clear? No one wants to hang out? Oh, you there. I'm gonna go listen to Logic and Khalid and who are all the Aquarians? Logic, Khalid, who's the guy, Dan? Who's that? You know who I'm talking about? The most famous British singer in the world.
Oh, that's true.
Ed Sheeran. He's an Aquarian. Logic, Khalid, Ed Sheeran, Lupe Fiasco, and one more. Oh! Logic, Lupe, Khalid, Ed Sheeran. Yeah. They're all Aquarians. I'm Aquarian, so. I'll see you guys, try to get the books, guys, and then do the reading, and we'll figure it out. I'm excited.
Hi, I actually just had a question about the book. Do you know if it's available at the UM bookstore? Only because I just was looking on Amazon and it might take like about a week to come in, so I just wouldn't be able to do it unless you know before.
Yeah, so here's what happened. Over the summer, towards the end, as we were preparing for school, I got an email from them. And they said, do you confirm that this is the book you want? And I said, yes.
Okay.
So in my previous experience, once I confirm, then they order the number that's registered for the class, and everything is taken care of.
Okay.
I hope that's going to happen
Worst
again.
case scenario, if it's like, if I find it for a lot cheaper online, and it does take a little while to come in, is that
We'll
okay?
figure it out. This is a crazy time, all right? What's your name?
Jocelyn.
I'm sorry about all this.
No,
I'll
it's
see you
okay.
next
I
class.
just- Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right.
Mr. John, how are you?
Hey, how are you, man? Let me just do one thing.
No problem.
I just want to close this.
It's all good.
Let's see. I'm still learning how to use this now. Yeah, hide thumbnail. Okay, I'm just going to click on it. There we go. Okay. Now I need to start video. Okay. Well, actually, I need to leave the meeting.
You have to click stop share.
Stop share? Okay. Stop share. Okay. Oh, okay. Now I can actually end the meeting. Gotcha. Thank you.
No problem.
End